Mr. Siddharth, and open to your questions. Anything you want to know about his experience, about his past and future planning?
Good evening, good afternoon, The lights are on, so I thought it's good evening. So good afternoon, gentlemen and the ladies out here. The reason why I said gentlemen and ladies and not ladies and gentlemen, I always try to do things the other way around. And we're talking about women empowerment, and what it was said in the morning, actually Dr. Sharma said in the morning, that men also get empowered by women's presence, their empowerment. So I thought like it's time to give the men a bit of a clap for that. But anyway. Before now, as you all saw, I don't know if you have a question, please shoot it across to me. But how it actually happened was I actually met this lady, not obviously as a doctor, I'm nowhere near a medical profession, but I actually met this lady in a show that I was as an actor attending to, and she came and spoken to me pretty much in similar lines. So it's basically kind of a true story that I converted to a fictional sort of presentation for you guys. And it actually really happened. So that was pretty, gave me goosebumps in those days. It still does actually. So that was how it started. This whole film was shot and done and dusted from conception to completion in 3 days. It might sound really, really fascinating in a way because it's that short time. I actually saw one short film festival by Indian Film Festival, 10 minutes film they needed for it to be submitted within the next date, let's say 14th of February. And I saw that ad on the 11th of February, first thing in the morning. So that day I wrote the story, and we got the lady agreed to act. She never did an acting before in the past, so on stage yes, but not in front of a camera. And then we came up with this. I was looking for somebody to act in the role of the doctor, but as you know, it was like searching a needle in a haystack. I wouldn't be able to finish it up in 3 days if I was waiting for that to happen. The rest is up to you. Obviously, please feel free to air your opinion on this. I'm happy to take any questions you might be having at this stage, if you're having, open to you. Yep. Sure.
Siddharth, I mean, now that you live in Australia, you've been living, I don't know the background, sorry, how long have you been living?
12 years, I think. Yep.
Yeah, it's a very powerful story, I agree, but it's very awkward for a doctor to breach confidentiality and go into that extra length into calling the boss of the son. I know it's a very emotional thing because maybe in a real life setup, if the story is real, as you said, mother could have been your patient as a doctor, and then yes, sometimes you can try to bridge, but still making a phone call to the employer and all that was going an extra length in real life time. So how did you confront all that?
The first thing was, very good question, thanks for that. First thing was, I was not looking at this film from a technical point of view to be politically correct in every possible way. It's like flying a drone in the city. People do that without even going to the nitty-gritties of 30 meters above ground level. We can't shoot in populated area. So if you really think of, I can give you a drone as an example. It's a very popular thing in the market today. Everybody's into commercial or amateur drone photography. If you really go by the CASA, which is Civil Aviation Security Authority of Australia, you can actually really fly a drone on top of a sea, middle of an ocean, or middle of a desert, because everything else, it says you can't fly over a populated area, you can't fly over this and that. But people do still fly because there are some gray areas there. Talking about confidentiality here, it doesn't say this was shot in Australia. So that's the biggest point here. And if you notice that this guy was talking, the doctor was actually talking, there was a line in Bengali as well there, where he says, Ami Dr. Samar Banerjee. So he didn't say, I am Dr. Samar Banerjee, he said, Ami Dr. Samar Banerjee, which is, again, there could be a cultural thing about it. So there are, in a way, if you look at it, I mean, yes, there could be breach of confidentiality there, or there may not be. Film is not always a replication of a reality. It's a moments that are tied together of a reality. It's like a necklace. So individually, if you reason everything, there's a lot of things in films you'll find, which is there's a gap of reasoning behind that. For example, if I'm showing the time I take to walk from here to the end of that stage, it'll probably take me, say, 9 seconds. in 9 seconds you can be in one city and then in Singapore in a film. So again, there's no logic, you have to squeeze everything in an hour, going across the world, around the world. So that's my reasoning. I'm not trying to justify anything here. If it is not still an acceptable logic for you,
Now,
then yes, I might have failed.
on the cultural basis, it's okay, it's all accepted.
Yes, so that was kind of the thingy, and there's a bit of a documentary. There's a bit of gap in the difference between documentary and fiction is probably that.
Really good.
But good question, thanks for that. Yes, please.
Is it hard to become a producer and actor at the same time?
A very good question, and then also cameraman. So I have another film coming up to be shown up this evening. That was more dreadful an experience for me than this one. And having said that, I didn't act in that, so that was a big bonus. After this one, I decided not to act in the ones that I'm doing the camera for. Direction, yes, but camera, very hard. The thing about filming is, I don't know how many of you are into filming, so I'll tell you a bit about my background. I was into films as a professional 100% of the time. I'm waking in the morning and go and act. That was my job, doing for a living for about 8 years before I moved to Australia. I moved to Australia on a very accidentally taking a decision sort of stuff. But hopefully, it's a wonderful land, the land of enchanting spectacles. And that's what if you watch the movie in the afternoon, which I would request you guys stay back and watch it. It is on Melbourne. You see Docklands, you've never seen it before, the way I'll show you, hopefully. But I'm not focusing on any slums or anything. Where I'm coming from is, back to your question, if you take these 3 roles, the director, actor, and cameraman, 3 roles, and editor. A lot of people don't understand what role the editor plays because he's never seen in the shooting area. But he plays a massive role. There's a famous saying in filming that the director and the cameraman should be brothers of the same mother. And the reason is, it's like the relationship between somebody going out to shop something and somebody sitting at home waiting for that to come back, come home and cook. So if people are cooking at home, you know what you would need to cook a food, good food. So you have to tell this guy that you go out there and get me, some butter, some this, some that, and bring it across. You can't have a chicken dish without chicken there. And you're looking at chicken mince and he brings a chicken breast. How would you convert the breast to chicken mince? So that level of communication has to be there. It is not always communication. When a cameraman, there are 2 types of cameramen. One is passionate and passionate. The other one is learned and passionate. Bit of brain and heart. So that's where the thing is, that you are focusing on that. Now coming back to the question of acting and being in the camera. So I couldn't do that. I had to put the camera on the stand and then go and act. And then come back and see how the result was. That's the awful part of it. So I strongly recommend that, if you're watching a film, forget about this one. This is very domestic, very low-key. But in a normal film, you will always have an assistant director, an assistant cameraman. So there are probably 4 or 5 cameramen. There's people who pull the focus. There's people who do the trolley for you. So there are people to help you out with that. So that becomes easier. So when you watch in the larger scale, Hollywood or Bollywood or Tollywood, that's not the setup we're talking about. In that setup, definitely you can. Because all you do is, there's an assistant there, cameraman say, hey, I'm going to go for a trolley shot here. The camera's going to go like this. And while you're going, Mr. Zoom puller, you can pull the zoom a bit and so it focuses on this person. The camera goes like this and focuses on the face. So that's a very technical move. And nothing creative about it. The creativity was done by this guy, the actual cameraman, to have that shot in mind for the film to look beautiful, right? So then he goes and acts there. The frustration could be that when he's acting, he's now waiting for the camera to come and it's not coming. Because the speed is something you can't say, oh, by the way, you have to go. You can't be that specific in everything. That the time it takes for the camera to go start action and the camera goes here and goes up until his face. That time could be this or could be this. Now, if you're spending too much of time on this with this other, because time is money in films, then this is something that this guy has to pick it up. So you have to tell him, I'll be walking from there and sitting. By the time I sit there, your camera should be here. And that's why you do a bit of rehearsal as well. So before you actually shoot the film, you just do a bit of rehearsal. So that is, if you're trying to do, in my films, unfortunately, I don't have money. So probably, I don't know, you guys look very important, so I might as well sell myself here. If I don't have money, I can't get a volunteer. In the film, filmmaking, anybody who's making films here would know, or into acting or something, it's not the easiest thing to do. You are creating, for me, I've just got an open slate here, nothing. I have no professionals. Everything I have to write the script, write the storyline, whether it's go, looking at points like that, and then talk about the acting, then talk about the camera, then talk about the editing. It gets really, really tough, especially if you're dealing with people who are not professionally equipped or professionally trained. That's when money comes into play, because then what you can do, you can hire a guy who is just going to do the camera. And he can tell you, well, this is not looking good, I need a bit of light here, let's go and shoot there, that's a bit of light. Because this guy doesn't care about how well you act in front of the camera. It's not his thought. He just wants to make you look the best he possibly can within that frame. Your job, and an actor's job, is not what the cameraman is doing. Yes, in filming, an actor has to know what the cameraman is doing, there's no second thoughts about it. But the actor, the actor needs to, once he knows what is happening here. So basically, when I was acting, we would, or any actor would do that, would ask the director and the cameraman how the shot is taken, what is happening here. So he knows the camera is going to come here. So generally, if your camera is coming from top to down on his face, no actor will actually start, as soon as the word action comes up, the camera is actually coming up from there and coming in front of your face. This actor will not start acting unless the camera is halfway here. So he's warming himself up, he's keeping an eye on the camera, and it's like ready to go, so the camera is coming. The moment it comes here, he starts acting. So that's how he needs to know that he's not wasting his energy and talent and whatever it is, right from the word. And people have different acting methods as well, so different people act differently. But it is very hard. It is very hard, because a director's job is to make sure that the composition looks really well, that the guy comes in at the right time. So he's actually coordinating the camera and the actor and their timing, and obviously the expression. That's the director's job. The camera's job is to make sure the camera reaches the way it is, it doesn't go out of focus, there's no light glare, there's no lens glare, all this sort of stuff. The actor's job is to make sure that he gives the right emotion to make the director happy. He's at the right spot, under the right light, to make the hair come out and the shine come out. So his knowledge is around where the camera is, where the light is, and how I'm expressing. And if you're trying to do all that in one, which is what I was doing, not only here, in other films as well, it is very tough. So that's why we need money to division of labor and specialized labor. Yes, please. No.
Why the film was in the black and white?
What do you think it was?
Why?
Tell me. The question goes back to you.
You're talking about the volunteering and money.
Probably there was a bit of grey light as well. Yeah, so it was a cheating that I had to do. The reason was I had only one light for the shoot, and if you don't have enough light, in my sense, it's a 72-hour project it was for me. So 72 hours to find the right light and write the story and all those ands. Like I said, it's not the easiest thing on earth to do. Otherwise, you'll have filmmakers everywhere. That's where the problem was, that I could only do depth. There are two forms of light if we are into filming. One is a light that creates depth in a film, which means that you don't look like an image of a passport size photo, flat backdrop. So if I'm standing here, there are two types of lights here. One is on my face here. Still you can see the background, because the intensity of light, this light, is worse than the intensity of this light. I look much brighter here. So there are two forms of light. In cinema, we have to create that, and create according to the logic. So there's a daylight coming through the window. It's not that you open the door and let the light come in. You have to shoot a night shot in a day and a day shot in a night. So that's the reality of light there, and I didn't have that much of equipment. So all I focused was creating light for depth, so that you see the film again, and you'll see that you're not leaning against a wall, you're actually sitting somewhere, there are things in the background, and that's pretty much how to do the black and
Are you
white.
taking any subjects which are not going to be?
Yes, that's what I was talking about. The one in if you are not here in the afternoon, then I'll probably give you a heads up about the film. That film's name is Samparka, Sampark, which means relationship. That's about a Bangladeshi guy coming to India, coming to Australia to study, like many of us do. I did that as well. And then getting married to a local girl here, so from an Australian girl. Obviously, they had a bit of relationship in the first place to get to that stage where they could marry each other. It was going okay, but he was having a bit of a difficulty in the relationship, and he thought it was because of cross culture. because of multiculturalism. A lot of things he's expecting to happen is not happening. And at that stage, that's where the storyline starts.